What's going on? Alright. I've been gone for a while. Sorry I left you. You know, I had some thoughts this morning. I've been trying to slow it down and wait till homie get done with the landscaping. It'll probably be too loud for me to be able to hear me. So I'll wait a second. Anyway, so I was having some thoughts this morning about a big picture kind of thing, man. But it's a funny observation. Because there's two different situations that exist at once, right? So when you're young, you think you got everything figured out, you know? The more you age, the more it becomes apparent how much more you got to learn. And I mention that because an early quote that I picked up, regardless if it was his philosophy or not, when I was a kid, I didn't understand it. And it's a quote by Socrates, which is basically summed up as this: the only thing that I know is that I don't know, basically. So the way that is computed mathematically is, as you live, you learn, you gain wisdom. But the process of being a blank slate and taking time and years to learn lessons, in essence, only brings to the surface and brings to your attention that whatever I thought I knew, there wasn't much. And the amount of knowledge I've gained or experience, you only realize, like, this ain't even the tip of the iceberg. And it struck me this morning because everybody looks at everything, every experience, every life lesson, and they rightly assume, like, okay, I know this, I know that, this is my experience, that is my experience, this is what I've learned, But as they go along, eventually they realize, like, this lesson may apply here, this thing may apply there, but it's never complete. I think one of the main tenets of that quote from Socrates was, first of all, you have to understand that Socrates studied for a very long time in Egypt. So one of the reasons why he's heralded in American culture is because he was Greek. And hence all of the emphasis on Greek knowledge and Greek everything here. But regardless of who taught him, he did learn in Egypt, but he was a student there, you know, and when he went back home, he was the teacher, you know. But in that philosophical culture, those two things inhabit the same areas. You don't just study, you teach. You don't just teach, you study, because it's a lifelong process. So give me 1 second to get me some cold water. Hold up, I'll be right back. All right, so one of the things that hit me, not this morning, but over time, is not just how little I knew when I thought I knew everything, but you often hear the term ignorant. And it has a negative connotation. Like almost always anyone mentions it. You know? But if you remove your ego and you try to not be judgmental of others, you know, everyone was ignorant at once, you know. Nobody came out the womb with an almanac encyclopedic knowledge of the earthly plane, you know. So for me, that big hair stage was like 13, 14, you know. Where whatever 2 or 3 lessons I learned or whatever the hell I thought I knew, even if 1 or 2 of the 3 things was true, you know, it might have only been a percentage of the right way to view it, you know. So fast forward, not till now, but years later, and you incorporate other things, like not just life experience, but physical, tangible things like education, you know, but not narrowly limited to a schoolhouse, you know. As those things happen, you begin to adjust because our species, if nothing, is adaptable, you know. So fast forward a few more years, and all throughout this, since back as early as I can remember, one of the first things that I enjoyed was a learning exercise that my parents did with me. You know, anytime we went somewhere in the car, and I'm sure early on it was probably something fun for them to do, by having me look at anything I could see that was legible outside the vehicle and read it. You know, and I'm sure that was like something fun initially, like, oh, my baby is smart. But I am nothing if not very hyper. Okay. But through practice, you can learn to control the exterior to where when you look at a lake that's completely placid, that you can do that, but that ain't really it, you know. So at one point they had to be like, man, okay, we get it. You can read this and that. Now sit your ass down. We trying to do this. But I mentioned that because it sparked something in me, you know, to the point where when I was tiny, you know, like I would compare what I had going on upstairs to everyone around me. Not just children, but adults too. You know, one blessing is not going to getting too big for your britches. I realized like I didn't know all the shit adults knew and I wasn't smarter than them. But amongst my age group and stuff like that, I was looking at the things I was reading and the comprehension levels and grades and stuff like that. And it caused other people that were either above me or at my level to stand out to me, you know? Because if you're truly coming from a pure place and you're trying to talk to someone, even at a young age like that, if you ain't trying to sun someone or something, whatever you trying to say to them might go over their head, you know? And as a kid, I ain't understand it. I ain't realized that everybody, mom and dad, wouldn't own them like that, you know? A key thing to take into account, though, too, is it wasn't like corporal punishment type of thing. You know, it was loving encouragement. You know, I never felt like it was a chore to learn, to read, to any of that stuff, you know? And before I became enamored with the world and worldly things and vices, you know, I gained a lot of enjoyment by going inside of knowledge and wisdom and books, you know, and I lost that for a long time because of temptation. A lot of times temptation will muddle the importance of things in your life to make it seem as though things that carry a lot of weight and importance, you know, when in reality they don't, you know. So in my second childhood, I got back in tune with that, you know, and it brings something full circle for you. Where I began at the beginning of the video, where I realized that these different things are inhabiting the same space. So we as beings, you know, being that we're sentient, you know, we can use critical thinking, unlike a lot of other beings on this planet. You know, I looked at it like it was more than just a feeling. Okay, so you know how dopamine works. You know, when you see your favorite cartoon, your favorite movie, and you get that, I began to get that again. And I remember how much I enjoyed that exercise of increasing my intellectual capabilities, man. Like, if you don't know something, you don't never have the motivation or the when you do find it, you don't even realize the connection. Okay, so this process has been deep and important because I think we all go through this, you know. But I think a lot of people lack that humble mode. You know, they think humility is a weakness because that's why a lot of people speak of relearning or unlearning. Because especially with people like me, you get a scripted, distorted kind of thing, you know, and that's the archetype, you know, and you base everything else, your experiences and everything around you off of that. And you going from a flawed foundation in the beginning, you know, so once I got back in tune with that, that's what hit me this morning. Like, you know, all of the growth that I've made, you know, so many people are responsible for it. You know, like, this isn't just a TJ thing, you know, and it's people that never opened the book for me or never tried to kick anything positive to me that I learned a lot from, you know. But you need time. That's the most valuable thing. The only thing in this world that you can't get back. You know? That's why the moment is important, because as those moons pass, you realize, man, like, okay, this is this, that is that, you know, what it is, you know? And that's when all those things that as a adolescent or as a young adult, things that used to boggle you, you know, you'd be like, okay, now I see what I was thinking then. Now I realize what the end result of this is. I realize what is reactionary, you know, things like that. And it's a cool thing, man. And I wanted to share it because in the process of learning, man, you got 84,000 people trying to teach something all at the same time. And for a sponge, the human tendency sometimes is to just take it all in, listen to everybody, you know. But there's also disinformation and misinformation, you know, which has been practiced domestically, you know, like a fine piece of music, you know. But since we also got non-domestic actors doing the same thing. You can get something and swear it's righteous and it ain't. It could be a deep fake or anything. Like if you didn't know me, you there's no way technologically that you could know that this was me talking to you if you didn't know me personally. You know? And I mention that just because, man, people, not only do people abandon intellectual pursuits, we've become just the face value species, you know. And I get that on my social media a lot, where people post things that could reverberate beyond themselves and it ain't even true or real. And because they didn't even do the time to go to their homepage and Google what they was talking about. And one of my last videos, I was talking about how sometimes people gain experience and see things and take them as truths. And when they realize that they're not truths and they carry them into their life, I hope the tripod don't tip over. Even though they know it's false, like cognitive dissonance, you know? And I mention that because it was incumbent upon me to know the difference, you know? But that secondary part of my life, the second childhood, was vital, man. Because some things in life can be learned by experience. Other things can only really be picked up through book learning. But those two things one can't be without the other, you know? Because you're gonna be deficient in some area of one of the two if you over prioritize one or the other, you know? And I say that because we live in a time with not just this hyper technology, but hyper tribalism, partisanship. You know, you see it in our political system, like to the extreme, you know. And since we're a social species, this new wrinkle that is really a remix of an old song is gaining steam and picking up energy, and it's sort of doing like an alchemical process on our experience where people are determining their truth through their bubbles, you know, instead of taking all these things and bringing them to the table and looking at them that way, you know. But I think people think it's so foreign to see life or the experiences in life outside of themselves. So as far as the quote from Socrates, and to wrap up the video, in this journey, man, you know, if you're trying your best, if you're doing your best, if you're trying really hard, it'll go full circle for you several times, you know. And if you're blessed, if you're lucky, each revolution that you have, you know, you're able to put another piece into that puzzle, which then brings out a clearer picture, you know. And it excites me, you know. I'm an optimist, so pointing out the negative is human nature, but I try to stay away from it. But you got to be a realist too. I'm under the scale sign, so I have to be balanced, man. And you look at some of this ish, and It's all polarity. It's all, you know, it's never like, man. And that's part of what I think keeps the human race having to learn and relearn and unlearn and relearn and learn all these lessons, man. Because it's not like we ain't been through this chapter in the school book before. But I loved having you on my couch today. You know, while I sat there with the, you know, with the notebook and you sitting on the couch and I'm asking you things like Jung or Freud. That's what this is for me. You know, I think I would have, you know, had I not got enamored with a death culture that helping people or, you know, the thought process in helping people would have been what I would have done, you know. What is this, man? Looks like my shave didn't go all the way complete. But I've rambled enough. Holla at me.